I know it might seem like the world kind of is falling apart, and it might even look like, times are crumbling all around us. But again, like I said, there's a lot of big voices out there. Those big voices also control those platforms that we're hearing those big voices are. So go look for the little platforms. Go find the smaller groups. Go find your people. Find your community. Get close with them. Meet your neighbors.
Hey Wildcats, my name is Nicole Camacho, and you are currently listening to UAZ Podcast. I'm here with my colleague,
Rebecca Irsile.
Today we have a very, very special guest, Miranda Campos. She is passionate and purpose-driven leader committed in restorative justice, community healing, and transformational reentry work with a master's degree in criminal justice and years of direct engagement in the field. She brings both academic grounding and lived empathy to her mission of supporting justice-impacted individuals and their families. Miranda currently works with Second Chance Tucson. We already interviewed Chuck, who is the CEO of the nonprofit, and we're here with Miranda, who also works there and assists Chuck with the mission they have in Second Chance. So we are very, very grateful to have you on the podcast to share your experiences in the nonprofit industry and also all your experiences prior. So for your first question is, what first inspired you to become involved in restorative justice and reentry work?
So many things. I think since the day I was born, I kind of always knew I wanted to, get justice involved somehow. But what really, truly actually inspired me, when I was in my early 20s, I was going to Pima College, and I was getting all my prereqs out of the way, and I took administration of justice classes there, and I took a corrections class, and I loved it so much. It just sparked something in me, because I had already experienced, my own personal experiences with the justice system and friends and family. So when I got the opportunity to learn about how the system works and, why, the whys and hows of why laws were created and how it has such impact in our society, I loved it, and I hopped right onto it. So that's kind of what sparked my interest. I started getting my administration of justice right then and there, and didn't stop.
Was there someone that really inspired you to go into justice system? I know for me, I grew up having Barack Obama as president, and I really, really loved him and how he talks and inspires people. So that kind of inspired me to go into the justice system. So was there anyone in particular that really inspired you?
I have always been inspired by, honestly, I think when I was younger, Dr. Martin Luther King with the Civil Rights Movement, Black Panthers, anyone really fighting the system always kind of inspired me. Joan of Arc really inspired me. She had this inspiration, and she was like, I'm going to go fight the power. She did it. So really all of those who kind of saw something in the world, saw the injustice in the world, and spoke up and did something, have always been incredibly inspiring people to me.
Yeah, that's great. It's really good to find people who are really passionate about specific causes, and then they're able also to work in those specific industries. Because I've met a lot of people who are like, I'm really passionate about it, but once they start to work, 2 to 3 years, they're like, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. So what really inspires you every day to be like, I'm still going to work on this mission?
I'll be honest. There was a moment there where I said, no, I don't want to.
Because the system sometimes, it fails you sometimes.
Yeah. It's very difficult. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of times, you have conflicting opinions on it of what to go for your career. Is it something that you're just working towards money, or is it your drive? And I feel that it can be both. But, when there is a danger where you're so passionate about things and you want to help, especially in the world of fighting injustices, it feels like an uphill battle, and it can be very disheartening. And then when you're working with people day in, day out, especially in social services, and you're giving so much of yourself to these people, and there is so much compassion and empathy involved, if you're not getting your cup filled, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can get dismayed so easily. There have been so many times that I've cried and just wanted to give up. And what am I doing this for? But then my work with the community always inspires me. I'm always I always get to meet someone new who has that passion and that spark. It hasn't gone out of them yet. And then they kind of remind me, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, you know. So I think that kind of is what keeps me going. But I definitely understand.
That's great, for sure. Because, like, when you look at what's happening around you, like, the injustices, and you're like, I'm not going to give up anymore. Yeah. So from your great experience, because you've been working on this and you said ever since you were born, you had this passion to work for the justice system. What does true community integration really looks like when, for example, when someone returns home after incarceration, what kind of connection, belonging, and practical support actually help them rebuild their lives and feel like they truly have a place again in the community?
That's such a great question, and it encompasses so much. And I was thinking about it last night.
Yeah.
I myself, I only went to jail one night, and that was all it took. You know, I have my own story to tell, but so I don't know what it's like personally. But my son's father was incarcerated through most of his 20s, and before that, he was in a juvie in jail. So I was there a lot of times after he came out, and to see what he needed and what he didn't. I think first and foremost, the reintegration process, what it truly looks like when a person who comes home feels safe, when they feel, you know, I'm okay. And I think it's a very personal thing. What true integration looks like, I think, will differ from individual to individual. Some people, you know, they like being in the limelight. They like coming out and, you know, sharing all their ideas on what they're doing. And some people are a little bit more quiet, so it might look differently for those.
Yeah.
Definitely, though, successful reintegration, I think, would be that the person who's coming out is met with all the opportunities that are available for someone who hadn't necessarily gone to prison, that they don't hit as many obstacles and roadblocks and barriers, because they're facing a lot when they come out. So if we could level the playing field for them, give them a hand up in some way, and give them, you know, a support network, people who have been there before, to kind of guide them and let them know what it's going to feel like. I remember my son's father when he got out of prison. One of the times we went to like a Circle K, I think it was, or like a grocery store. All the options can be so overwhelming for people, you know, and ideally reintegration would look like they're comfortable in those kind of places. They're comfortable in environments, and they feel that their past isn't something that is a knapsack they're carrying around and everybody can see around them.
Yeah. How about, like, for people who really wants to go back to school? Like, is there any supporting system here in Tucson, like, for somebody who is passionate again to maybe go pursue their careers? Like, how can those people be supported? Because, like you said, first of all, like, it's so hard. Even when, like, with selecting little options, it becomes really hard for them, and so they have to have somebody to support them throughout the whole process. How about when it comes to education? Because education is another place that, like, even if you haven't gone through that experience, it becomes really challenging for one individual. So are there, like, places where these people can go in Tucson to have that support?
There really are. In Arizona, actually, I'm pretty proud to be in Arizona because the Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation, and Reentry, they added that extra R in there for the focus of reentry. And the community statewide, there's been so many grassroots organizations and very established organizations that do provide services to help people who have been incarcerated continue their education. There's lots of trades programs out there. There's a lot of apprenticeship. I know Arizona at Work, they have a webpage. You go to it. There's so many different ways there that they can connect you. They have a reentry department specifically for people who have come out to help them with the different needs and especially employment that they might need help with. I lost track of the question.
You're answering the question because the question was like, where can they find help if they really want to go back to school?
Not just, you know, the resources that are available. You know, the government provides resources. There is recently, I know within the past few years, people have been incarcerated. They weren't able to get Pell Grants, but they can now, which is so big. Because
that helps a lot. Yep.
We can all use it. So there is a lot of organizations here locally in Tucson, actually, that can do a lot of help with that and get people connected. Pima College has a program. They're awesome. Actually, SCT board member Tony Offret, going to shout him out, he does a program with Pima College and those in reentry. So there are ways. It's just, if you don't know about it, then it's hard to find it.
Yes, yeah.
You mentioned before your one-night stay at jail. How was that experience like that really scared you away from going back? I've seen documentaries and a lot of like TV shows and everything that really scares people. Like I think it's like Beyond Scared Straight, like to scare little kids. So how was your experience like? I want to hear from like your voice and your story.
I had it coming. I really did, because I have 3 years in recovery from alcohol now, but for a very long part of my life, I was a high-functioning alcoholic, and that happened when I was 29, and so I continued drinking after that. It didn't stop me drinking, but it did stop me from ever drinking and driving again. Yeah. I had my son at that point, so honestly, it was kind of rough. And then having to get an interlock in my car, it kind of, that experience, it wasn't just, the jail experience. That was kind of easy. The women were so nice and kind to me. I was lucky enough that back then, there's a building right now, the annex building next to the jail. They had a work release program. So I only had to be there for 24 hours, and so I got to be with people who are actually going to work and coming in, so it was a much more, they had more, not rights, privileges. Yeah, so they had more privileges, so it was a very more laxed yard, I guess is the word. It is very humiliating, though, to have to go into the process. My mom dropped me off. I said goodbye to my son. Oh, no. I think that was maybe one of the first times I said goodbye to him. He was just a little kid. Luckily, he doesn't have any memory of it. But hugging my mom goodbye, going and standing there with everybody, sitting in the pen waiting to get processed. And then, in the violating, you have to stroke down, you have to bend over, you have to cough in front of a complete stranger. That is something I never want to do again. I actually had to do it when I detoxed 3 years ago. So, those are things that sit in your mind. It's a humiliating experience. It was for me, and I'm sure for all the people who have gone through it. But even in that, I was still able to find kind people. Even in that, the women who were there, they were just like me, just maybe they had done more things or less things. Who knows why they were there? But I've found that in recovery and being in circles of other people who've been justice impacted, there's like the field gets leveled for all of us. We all kind of have sympathy and empathy for each other for what we've been through. So honestly, my one-day jail experience wasn't that bad, but the repercussions after that, the money, the interlock. I was taking my son to elementary school, and I remember being in the parking lot before we could leave. I'd have to I'd bend down because I didn't want all the other moms looking at me. And then, and if you don't keep blowing into your interlock, your car will just turn off. So, that was not a fun experience. And I know that having that on my record, that was actually my second DUI. I kind of forgot about the first one because I was lucky enough to get diversion on my first one. I think I was 18. Those experiences and the criminal justice that I have in my past, I know have definitely impacted me in trying to get jobs and the way people look at me. I mean, you don't look at me right away and think, oh, I've been through stuff, And so that's a really big piece of my work that I do to share. You can't tell who someone is by just looking at them and judging them. Just wrong altogether.
In the Speaking Bureau, I really learned that it starts within you to make a change in your life. So it's great that you, with all that experience, you're helping others that are experiencing those experiences and helping them become a better person at the end of the day. So I think that's truly amazing, and it's truly moving for anyone who's listening and us too. I feel like it's really inspiring. Yeah, so for our next question is, connection can be such a powerful part of healing and growth. Why do you believe feeling seen, valued, and supported by the community makes such a difference in someone's life?
I love this question. I love it so much, especially because of the Speakers Bureau. A really big piece of it is lifting up justice-impacted voices, getting the people who are impacted by all the stuff that is going on in the world, getting their voices heard, because, you know, I'm pretty sure it's no big surprise to anyone. With all that's going on in the world, it seems like some of the loudest voices that are being heard might not necessarily be representative of the majority or the people who are actually impacted by policy, by whatever is going on. There's a saying, nothing for us without us, you know, and I feel that very strongly. Working in the reentry field, working in nonprofit, working with cross-sector across all these organizations with the government and everyone, I've kind of learned for a very long time there have been people in positions who've been running the show. And that's wonderful, and it's great to have them. But maybe they're not justice impacted, and so they don't have the perspective or the ideas of what could really genuinely help the people that we're trying to serve. So a really big piece with Second Chance Tucson is making sure that we have lived experience leadership. Because, you know, I can come up with, like I said, I didn't go to prison. I don't know what that's like. But I can come up with all of these ideas that I think would be really helpful. I can use my education and my, you know, the criminology of why people commit crime and this and that. I can throw all of that at it. But if it's not helpful, it's not working, and it's creating more harm, we need to hear from the people who have actually lived through it and what has helped them. How can we incorporate what is actually working? So, yeah. Long-winded answer.
That's true, because sometimes, like, when you haven't gone through something, no matter what, you can't understand it. And so if you've gone through it, you can come up with better strategies to help others overcome those challenges, because you've gone through it, you know how it feels like, and you know, like what you said, you know what's helped you overcome those challenges. So yeah, your journey is really incredible, because I'm learning so much from you. It's like just looking at what you've just done in the past. Some of the things that you just talked about was like overcoming that addiction, and like what we were saying earlier is that sometimes change starts with you personally first. And so like how did those experiences in your life shape the purpose and passion you bring to your work today, and what helped you turn those setbacks into something meaningful? I know you've tried to explain that in the other previous question, but like how did like whatever you went through helped you, motivated you more, and gave you more passion to your work?
I'm actually glad that you kind of asked it again, because this is
it's kind of
I think a really huge, gigantic portion of my story in my life of why I do what I do is because when I was young, I was 13, my parents caught me smoking weed. I had been through some things before that they didn't know about, some sexual assault and other things, and so I was self-medicating. They, in their effort to find me help, you know, they were looking through a phone book back then. They found a place called Pathways, and they were an organization here in Tucson where they would go to the schools and teach kids, you know, come join us. We're a sobriety group. And so my parents, so desperate to try and find me help, they put me into this group, which really, it turned out to be a cult. Quite frankly, that's what it was. And if you, Dan Rather did a documentary on it. It was led by a man named Bob Meehan, who took the 12 steps. He had been to prison himself. He took the 12 steps and he twisted them so he could make profit off of it, and he targeted it to children. And then he used fear with their parents to pay exorbitant amount of money to put us into his programming, which wasn't actually state approved. He created programs for rehab for children, and it was a very traumatic time in my life. A lot of all of that experience, and the survivors of that group actually are still speaking out now. They're involved with what he spread that group. He started it in California, and then he got shut down because Dan Rather and other stuff, people saw what he was up to, and then he kept doing it across the nation. And he's had a couple of organizations get shut down. He passed away, but he still has people who run things. I would hope that those organizations aren't still following the same kind of, you know, no curriculum, no protocol. That is actually, I hope there's actually oversight on it now. But that's where I met my son's father. That's where I met a lot of the most amazing best friends I have now. We were only 13, 14, and so we opened up to each other. We shared our life experiences. We didn't get help. We didn't actually get any real behavioral health support because there was nobody actually training us. The trainers were people who had done drugs themselves, and they just kind of were doing whatever curriculum they were putting together for us. And so I left that group, and so did my son's father after a few years. And neither of us got the help that we needed. We continued into drugs and a little bit of life crime, doing things. We were teenagers. We didn't know any better. That group that I was actually in had advocated for the students, the children, to drop out of school. Drop out of school, just hang out with the group, don't hang out with anybody else. It got real culty, and if you did leave, the group would never talk to you again. Wow. So I knew what it was like to get so involved with like all these close people and then get ostracized from it, because I always knew, like I said, when I was younger, I could call a spade a spade. I see where there's oppression. I know when people are trying to control. But as a child, you don't have the knowledge or the wherewithal, to voice that, to speak it to people. And then they were telling our parents, don't listen to the children. If they don't listen to us, in a week, if they leave us, they'll die. They're not going to be here. They would tell their parents that we would die. And so our parents were instructed to kick us out, to cut off money if we weren't with the group anymore. And a lot of people didn't make it. I have friends who aren't here anymore because our parents and we trusted this organization to take care of us, and they didn't. And it took me a really long time to process through that, but I know that has always been my motivation. And that's just one story of going to find help at an organization and then it not being what it says it would be, or just not being able to find the right help. So for me, I know the value of genuine help, of people who are actually compassionate and want to see you thrive. And I know when there's organizations that are just doing things for show or whatever reason, money, whatever reasons they have. So for me, my passion is resources should always be free. We can help each other where we can. There's enough to go around. And whatever education, whatever experience, whatever, personal advice I can give people from what I've been through, that could maybe help you and you don't have to go through what I went through. Or if you did go through what I went through and it helps you, any way I can give back. That is kind of my passion and my life's purpose.
Yeah, that's great, but it's so sad to see what you went through. Sometimes, like you said, parents may trust the system, and so once they trust it, it's so hard for them to see the blind spots. And so, I'm just wondering, how can other students, mostly the high school students, find enough support, or, being scammed by some organizations that are just looking for maybe profits or are just looking for their name to be famous somewhere, but they're not really supporting the students? Because as we see, so many of the high school students are still going through the same problems. So, how can we really, reach out to them and support them? I don't know, but I just there is a need in most of the communities.
I think that I think that the younger generations and in the times that we're in right now, they're seeing reality as it is. I think that the youth and even your guys' generation, my son, he's kind of close to your guys' age, he'll be 21 this year. You guys have been through a lot. You've seen a lot. So I think it's hard for you guys not to be able to speak the truth when you see it. You can't lie anymore.
Yep.
When the systems of oppression are crumbling before us, it's there's a big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I would love for high school students to know that they're supported and to find someone that they feel safe with. My intuition has never been wrong. When I feel like, something is off, ever since I was younger, and it's only been when I've gone against my intuition that things have kind of fallen. And that feeling of I knew that wasn't right. I always tell everyone, if your intuition is telling you this feels wrong, if this doesn't feel good, and even if you can't, explain why, you can't give it reason, if you just feel uncomfortable, find somebody who you are comfortable with and maybe talk to them, work through it with them, see what their guidance may be. It is it's a shame that in this world right now, so many adults are not, able to be supportive for children, and that the ones that we thought we could turn to maybe necessarily that we can't, but there are so many good ones. There are amazing good ones. There's really good collaborations out there, and I've met them, so I know they're there.
Yeah.
So stigma around justice involvement still exists in many spaces. In your view, how can students and community begin to shift the language, mindset, and attitude towards people who have been impacted by the justice system?
I think this kind of piggybacks off of the last one again, in that I think this generation has seen, at this point, we all know somebody who's justice impacted, I think. I think it's very hard to find someone who doesn't know someone or is even related to someone who might have been impacted by the system. And I think there's a whole generation of compassion and empathy being fostered in the younger generations who can see that differentiating, you versus me, them, they have this and I don't, so this means that we have to be, on different sides of the table. I really genuinely, I have so much optimism and hope in the future generations and the change that is going on right now, especially in the world. We can see where it has been unfair. We can see where it's been oppressive. And the voices who are seeing it are standing together. Yeah. So I would definitely recommend find those people, find the cause that you are passionate about. There are coalitions for everything, and I'm in so many of them. So I know, there's the coalition to end homelessness. There's a coalition for reentry. There's different coalitions that are doing different sectors, and there's little grassroots all over. But again, I know it's doing the digging, doing the research. So looking in all the different platforms that are available. Some people like to use just Facebook. I know there's an organization here in Tucson called Women to Women Nonprofit. Yeah. They do so much incredible work. They have a little website, but it's not incredibly huge. But the bulk of their work they do on Facebook. And I always see, we need help. This woman needs help with these clothing, these blankets, and the community comes together. So if you want to get involved that way, there's so many groups and so many organizations. I know the NAACP is doing great stuff with justice initiatives right now, with bail reform, with being able to help people get full rights restoration after they've been incarcerated, because they should. I think it's ridiculous. We took their voting rights away in the first place. So, there's a lot of different avenues. And you don't have to be, I think, something that stops a lot of people is thinking, I want to go protest. I want to go be in the streets with everybody. But I also know I have a son. I'm his only, parent. And so I want to make sure I'm around from him. Maybe I don't want to necessarily put myself in harm's way. So, there's a lot of fighters out there doing the good work. So I can do other things. I can help donate money to organizations who are doing good things. I know it sounds not fun. I can write a local sternly worded letter to, our local representatives. I can help be there to support in any way. And honestly, even just, I think, kind words to somebody who's doing something good that you've noticed it goes so much farther than you would even, realize. When I'm having a down day and someone they tell me something nice or something good that they've done, that can kind of pick me right back up. So if anyone ever has a passion to help, there's lots of different ways, and obviously Second Chance Tucson, if they'd like to connect with us, I'm happy to, connect anyone anywhere that they could help.
That's great. So when it comes to justice and also fighting for what, with what you believe in, usually there is so much stigma, like what Nicole was saying earlier. And I have seen this, even if when at the moment young people are really passionate about different issues, they're bold, they want to speak up. But even when you speak up, people associate you with that particular group. People associate you with whatever you're talking about. Or if the system is trying to shut you down, everybody looks at you as being a bad person. So how can young people become bold no matter what? For example, you talked about when you were incarcerated for just a day. When you came out, you kind of you're feeling not yourself in a way that even when you took your son to school, you're I don't want the other mom to see me. And so there are students or young people who are really passionate about specific issues. They were not incarcerated, but when they speak up for somebody else, people usually associate them with that particular problem. So how can we really be bold beyond that?
You got to be okay with making people angry at you, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Yeah.
And that is actually something I have recently very much had to come to terms with. Because if you, innovators, change makers, people who have an idea that goes against the status quo, you're going to cause friction. It's going to cause people to not like you because they're so set in the old ways. And sometimes, you can't necessarily blame them. It might not. It's never personal. That is something that's helped me a lot. It's not personal. A lot of it is just, what you just see on the outside or what you're hearing on the outside. That's not the whole person. And when people, I've had a lot of pushback in the last couple of years with the stuff that I've been doing. I'm not going to lie. I fought I get in a lot of feisty, heated arguments with people in an effort to keep moving forward and doing what I believe is right. But I also make allowance for the fact that I could be wrong, and that's okay too. I'm open to always discussing new things, but as long as we're creating an open dialogue. Yeah. But I think to the point of what you said, how can people, you just gotta unfortunately be okay with not being liked by some people, and that's okay because you know what? If you don't like what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is my truth, and it's something I'm fighting for justice, and I feel so passionate and so that it's the right thing in my gut to do. If these are the people who are disagreeing with me, then thank you for showing me that. We don't necessarily have to work together. Yep. You don't need to be a part of my circle. No hard feelings. Everyone is entitled to their opinions. I get that. It's no fun to not be like, honestly.
That's true.
They say if you're not making people angry, then you're probably not doing it.
I love that. Yeah, you just have to be okay with it, because sometimes, like, when you fear, when you fear of not being liked by everybody else, that's when, like, you start following everyone else. And so when you have that, I'll say, boldness to just stand up for whatever is right, I think that's what will help most of our communities at the moment. Because even when we have all these systems in place, you have the transparency, sometimes things are always wrong. And when we don't really speak up, then we're hindering our own selves, because whatever the other person is going through today may come to you as well tomorrow. So you just never know. Yeah. We've asked this question. No, you've answered this question in some ways as well, and it's one of our last questions. So for students who are listening today and want to be part of a solution, what are some meaningful ways they can support reentry efforts or help create more welcoming and supportive communities for people starting over?
I'm like, what else haven't I said? There are so many different avenues. If somebody specifically wanted to help those who are in reentry, I know of organizations. People always need clothes. People always need, food. There's places people can volunteer to help.
Yes.
I know with Second Chance Tucson, we're trying to start an initiative where we can hopefully gather together materials for people when they come out of reentry, and give them prep stuff. There's organizations out there, so there's that. There's so many different sectors you can just dip your toes in to see if it's something that you would enjoy. Yeah. A lot of the organizations here in Arizona that are nonprofit that provide just basic resources to anybody. Very much so also cater to those who are going through reentry, and they always have flyers, or like I said, you got to do the research, but if you go to a website, you click on the tab under like services, you'll find a list of programs, and then you can see what lights your fire. I think I know there was a volunteer website where you can go to see all the different volunteer opportunities that are here in Arizona. But just most specifically, I work with the Pima County Reentry Coalition. I work with Second Chance Tucson. If anybody wants to get connected, they're more than welcome to join us in our committees. Second Chance Tucson is a collaboration of just people volunteering. We don't have paid staff. I do have the beautiful new title, but we still don't have, giant funding, all of that. And so we're still growing. We're still trying to build. And ideally, my goal is to build up our Speakers Bureau. We do pay them for their engagements. So we'd like to build that up and get more money for everybody and volunteers. So Pima.gov. That's an amazing place that always has lots of events that are coming up, resources out there. But I think really biggest piece, aside from, getting yourself out there and doing something, educating yourself.
Yes.
Like you had mentioned, the jail shows. I remember I grew up watching Cops, so those things. Ask questions, question the narrative when you see things out there, when you see stories, when you hear things about criminals, kind of ask yourself, who's benefiting from this? Am I getting all parts of the story?
Yep.
And also, taking that into consideration when you meet somebody who's been justice impacted, knowing in your mind there's more to it, there's more, societal impact that got this person to this place, just like, got me to where I am, and to allow grace. And I think forgiveness and empathy. I think a huge hindrance in pretty much all human existence has been letting shame dictate a lot of things. So letting go of shame. That's why with Second Chance Tucson, restorative justice is such a big piece. Showing that you're not defined by your past. Your mistakes don't make you who you are. Just because you did something that is quote-unquote bad or illegal, things that are illegal then might not be illegal now.
Yep.
So, there's that.
Yeah.
But, you're not defined by your worst day, and you wouldn't want to do that to anyone else. And seeing someone who's been incarcerated for several years, I think keeping in mind, go sit in a room like this for just 10 minutes all by yourself and see. I remember when I did go to the jail, they left me in a holding room. And I was like, oh God, what did they forget me? It was smaller than this. It was about half this size. And I just started freaking out. So I can't imagine. I remember writing letters to my son's father, and he would always I have a box full of letters over the decade that he wrote me. Everything he shared with me, he was always still him. He's still the same person, Everyone is still, everyone's someone's baby at one point. Everyone was a child who had hopes and dreams.
Yes.
So, if everyone could just keep that in the back of their mind, every time you meet somebody, we'd all be happy. But just, putting a little bit compassion first and leaving room for grace, and always remembering it's not personal.
Yep.
Sometimes, people are going through things, they'll snap at you, they'll be ugly and mean. I don't have to take that on. I can kind of just wish them well and, hope for the best, really. So.
Yeah, I do want to piggyback on what you said about shame. I think that's one of the biggest things that people do go through. We were both student senators, and for my term as a student senator, we made hygiene products pop-ups where we had them in every campus, and people would donate hygiene products for students, but the only problem was that students were shamed to get products when they needed it. So I think shame is such a crucial and a huge factor that really plays in not only students but individuals who do need help.
That is such a really, really good point to me. The shame in asking for help. It's it's for some reason in our society, we see people, we've made it seem like just because someone doesn't have what they need, oh, they're less than. That is, changing that narrative, changing all of that is definitely, that breaks my heart that people, people didn't feel, because I can understand that, being, I didn't actually go to high school. I dropped out. I went to a couple different ones for a few months every now and then. But, I could imagine, I remember free lunches at school. There was that feeling of shame of, I'm on the free lunch thing. That's such an interesting thing that you brought up, and I really do think dismantling the concept of shame, you don't have to feel ashamed for needing help. And I think that's also a really big piece. People are expected, when you come out, do good, you got that. And even if I did give you everything you need, you can't expect someone to just, know it all and get it done right away. Oh, that really does, that hurts me that, people felt shame that they didn't want to go get help because it makes them look a certain way. I think maybe exploring that, and seeing why do we feel that way? Why do we feel shamed to ask for help? Why, the poverty level, why does that sound like a bad word? And actually this kind of I love the etymology of words. So I was looking into, charity and giving alms and what that initially came from,
Yeah.
and the coffers, and the it came to do well. Initially, giving alms was like a good thing. Giving to the poor was, it was ideally everybody realized the intrinsic value of giving to others, and it
yes.
wasn't shamed for.
Yeah.
So a beggar wasn't, somebody who you looked down on. It was just, it was helpful. Somewhere along the lines,
It changed.
yeah.
Yeah.
I trust this new generation to kind of take it up and show that there's no shame in asking for help. And then honestly, if everybody was distributed resources equally, there wouldn't be shame in that.
Yep,
So.
for sure. Thank you so much. This has been amazing having a conversation with you, and we are grateful that no matter what you went through in life, it gave you more hope and more passion, because there's so many people out there when they go through certain obstacles, or if they didn't really have like a very great childhood growing up, that really affects them, and they're like, maybe I'm not just supposed to do good things in this world, and here you are still fighting and working so hard, ensuring that at least, even if you didn't have whatever you wanted as a kid, but growing up, even if also when you grew up, you still had obstacles, you're still fighting for others, ensuring that others feel seen, belong, and, it's really great, and I'm glad that you're doing that. So before we end, do you have anything else you want to leave with the students?
A word of advice for
just a word of advice.
Word of advice.
Yeah.
Life isn't, I know it might seem like the world kind of is falling apart, and it might even look like, towns are crumbling all around us. But again, like I said, there's a lot of big voices out there. Those big voices also control those platforms that we're hearing those big voices are. So go look for the little platforms. Go find the smaller groups. Go find your people. Find your community. Get close with them. Meet your neighbors. When the chips fall after this administration, and we'll still be here. I'm still going to be here. The people that I'm working with that are so loving and kind and have been through it and want to help others get through it, find those people.